And here we are live on a Thursday night. Buenas noches.
Buenas
Uh,
noches.
Thank you to everybody who's showing up tonight and who showed up yesterday and was like, why aren't they live? Um, some of y'all know I was out in the streets all day with Rashida celebrating her birthday. So instead of trying to figure out how and where I could manage to go live yesterday, I decided to bump it over a day. So thank you for joining us. I'm really excited about my guest tonight. But before we go there, I need to do excuse me, y'all. I got home at four. No, we got to the city at 4 o'clock this morning. I got home closer to 4:30, 4:45. So I'm still trying to bounce back. I'm still a little slow today. But before we jump into tonight's conversation, I do need to introduce myself, especially in case YouTube served this up to you. And if you're not familiar with me, you may be like, who the hell is this woman? And what is she talking about? Hi, I'm Adelia, but most people on the internet know me as Picky Girl Travels the World. I am the founder of Picky Girls Travel To, a Facebook group for Black women, solo travelers. I am the creator of Financial Confidence Academy, which is one of the places where I help women master their money so they can live the life of their dreams, which brings me to my guest tonight, Miss Liza, who is literally doing that. And so I'm excited to have this conversation with Liza tonight and have it with all of you that are here live tonight, as well as anybody who might be watching this on the replay. If you are not subscribed to the channel and you are into travel talk and money talk and move abroad expat life talk, this is the channel for you. So I don't know what you're waiting for. Go ahead, subscribe, turn on notifications, and you'll know when we go live, when I post a new video. So welcome, Liza.
What did they say? Like, comment, subscribe.
Yes. I'm not very good at that, remembering all those things, but yes, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm trying to think of like, where do we want to start? Y'all see her IG handle is debt free to travel. So obviously she belongs on this channel talking to us. Now, one of your goals was to become debt free so you could travel the world.
Yes.
When did you become debt free?
April 23rd, 2020.
Okay. All right. So let's back up before April 23rd, 2020 and talk about the financial situation you were in. I believe we're going back to maybe 2016 thereabouts.
Yes. So 2016 is when I graduated college. That's probably when my first inclination into financial wellness came about, because I didn't have none. You graduate and you want to get an apartment. Like I wanted to get an apartment, and my credit score was in the fours, and that's
Wait. Let's stop right there. Okay, so you graduated from college, and your credit score was in the 400s. How did that happen?
Poor money management in college. So I was 18, and I got a American Advantage credit card with a $600,000 credit limit. My freshman
600 or 600?
$6,000.
Okay, so I was about to say somebody gave you what?
No, $6,000 at 18, and I did not manage it well. So I had that card and another card that unfortunately were closed off, and they were in collections. So when I graduated, thinking, I was a pretty good student, I was not a good student of money. So I graduated and couldn't really do much. Like I went home to my mama's house because that's what I could do.
Yeah.
Learned.
Okay, so you graduated, you were like, okay, time for me to get an apartment, and found out that wasn't going to happen with your 400 some point credit score.
No.
Okay. So at that point you had 2 credit cards in collection. Did you have any student debt?
I did have student debt. So I had a very minimal amount of student debt. And I try to talk about this on my page because I'm aware other people in the debt-free community on Instagram have larger amounts. I was an RA for 3 years in college, a resident advisor. So that meant a lot of my room and board and my meal plan was covered. So I didn't have the maximum amount. I really only had my freshman year, which I took out the maximum loans because didn't really know any better. And then my senior year, in which I stopped being an RA halfway through because it actually wasn't as great. And I took out loans that year. So I didn't have a ton of student debt, about $16,000 total.
Okay. That's still a lot of money to owe. And you've not like really had your first adult job. Now you mentioned you had those 2 credit cards and you used and abused them. And is it Auntie Lou? I remember getting my first credit cards in college. They would wait on campus to sign you up. And of course, I went ham.
Your first piece of mail that your parents don't open. Your first piece of mail your parents don't open is a credit card in the dorm mailbox. For me, it was.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to lie. I did play the credit card game because I wanted the free t-shirts. I don't know if that's still legal for them to do. But at the time, like, because I was broke. So like, I didn't want to go to the bookstore and spend $30 on a school t-shirt when I could just sign up for this credit card and they would give me one for free.
Very true. Very true. They still did that when I was there in 2016 because I had a couple of people that signed up for the, and it was a specific t-shirt as well. Like it's a t-shirt that not everybody else could get. So, but.
Okay. So, Did the light go on like immediately after you graduated, or did it take a little time?
It took a little time. I was definitely in the slumps. I would say it took until about 2018. So from 2016 to 2018, when I graduated in May of 2016, I had been what I thought was a good student. And when I came out of college, that does not mean you get a job. That was the first time you start experiencing, for me, I started experiencing those denials and rejection. And that kind of put me in a little bit of a slump for about 2 years. I had come out of a long-term relationship that I was in throughout college. So it took about until 2018 for me to really be like, okay, like this is my money, this is my issue, and I want to do something about it.
Okay, something I am curious about is your thoughts or your attitude about the credit card debt.
Yes.
Because I feel like on the whole in American society, we've just kind of gotten to a place where we accept credit card debt as the norm. Like everybody's going to have some amount of credit card debt. So I'm curious, did you kind of feel that way as well?
No. So when it all clicked, the light bulb went off for me. I had been reading Dave Ramsey. So for me, it was more of the Dave Ramsey light bulb. I will say now that I don't necessarily prescribe or put out his teachings, but for me, that's what introduced me. And so I was under the impression of no credit card debt. Now that I am debt free, I do have credit cards. I do utilize them, but I do not carry a balance. So
okay. Yeah. But prior to you reading that, did you kind of? Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Yeah. Prior to reading that, I didn't even tell my mom I had a credit card because that goes back into the shame of debt, right? So it's not that I only had maxed out these cards. My mama had put the fear of God in me about credit cards for years, and I got to college and still did it. Credit cards were not a thing. I don't think most of my siblings. I think some of my siblings, even now, 2022, just started getting credit cards, realizing. They are financially well enough to do it and not, damage their credit or damage their financial being. But yeah, no, I lied for the longest.
Okay, because that's very interesting because I talked to some of my clients and who have found themselves in having a problem with debt. And one of the conversations that we normally have is that like nobody really talked to them about it. So your mama talked to you.
But
you just
not in the way that the talk should have happened, right? So it's in the same way of the way they tell you about those bad boys in school. It's that same way. It's like, well, you ain't tell me why they're bad. You just say they're bad, and they not bad looking. You got to give me a little bit more. My mom said to Sheridan, you got to give me a little bit more, Sheridan. Like I don't. So yeah, that was more like they were bad, but the levels and the nuances behind why credit cards are bad, the predatory nature in which sometimes they can be given to people, that was not relayed. It was just, don't do it.
They're bad. They're going to do it. It's funny you make that connection, because I think it was last week I was a guest on Kathy Hampton's YouTube channel, and we were talking about financial wellness and how for a lot of us, nobody ever talked about it. And we were like, well, what other thing in life is it that's so important that nobody talks about? And we were like, sex.
Yes.
And you know, and how not talking about that ends up with people in some not so great situations. And here you go. Your mama told you credit cards are bad. You shouldn't have them, but didn't give you any of the nuance and so I'm sure she felt like, I have done my part. She knows she shouldn't do it, but you did it anyway.
Did it anyway. Did it, and then I could not bring my mom to tell her that it was that bad, right? When I moved back home after college and I was trying to find work, I just could not, I had applied to an apartment and I didn't even tell my mom I was denied because I was just so ashamed, because it's like she had told me, but I didn't even know all the reasons I should be ashamed, you know? Like, I didn't really even know what I had done wrong. I knew what I had done wrong. It was just so many levels to it, but it took me forever to even tell her how bad it had gotten. Okay.
And so about 2 years after you graduate, so we're at about 2018, which, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you this, but if you started to get yourself together around 2018, or at least figure out you needed to, that's a big deal. There are a lot of grown folks that, you know, they have been grown, they've had kids, they've done it all, and they still haven't kind of gotten to that place to say like, oh, hold on, I've got some issues I need to address here. So yeah, you should definitely, you know, pat yourself on the back for that.
Yeah. So I went on a trip to tie back into travel. I went on a solo trip, my first ever solo trip to Thailand in 2018. And that trip was the real catalyst of like, okay, I want to do this all the time, and I cannot do this and have $400 or $500 I gotta send to Discover, send to American Advantage, send to Sally Mae. And that trip was like all right, this is it, I'm getting rid of this debt. So that trip, in addition to like being, of course, life-changing, it was changing of my finances as well. Probably would have never gone this way if I hadn't done it.
Okay. Do you have a total amount that you were trying or had decided to pay off?
So I wanted to pay off everything as soon as possible. That was around that time. It was maybe 23-ish thousand, 23, because there was a couple of setbacks during my debt-free journey. So it ended up being around 25 at the very end. But at the very beginning, it was probably around 23,000.
And that's credit card debt, that's student loans, that's your car loan. Mm-hmm. You were like, I don't want to owe anybody any money if it's going to keep me from traveling.
Yep.
Our Black Utopia talking about, oh my gosh, had I learned at her age. I mean, you and me both. I always felt like I had my stuff together, but there was still so much more I could have done, you know. Okay, so the magic question, of course, is how did you do it?
Yes. So I said, I read the Dave Ramsey method, and I just got on Instagram and made a second account, this account. And I used this to search the debt-free journey hashtag. And I was looking at what worked for other people, getting encouragement, getting new ideas. So at the beginning, I had started out with the Avalanche method. So you're taking the ones that have your debt amounts that have the largest interest rate, and then you knock those off. I got a little bit discouraged during that process because some of those were my student loan balances. So it felt like I was just not getting anywhere.
Yes. Yes.
So I switched over to the Snowball method, which is where you start with your smallest amounts and then you work through those. So that means some of my higher interest amounts were still remaining, and I was just paying the minimum. But essentially what I did was I had a roommate, so I was able to go to my mom's house. And then I had a roommate, and I got a second job as a waitress / bartender. And I lived off of about a third of a paycheck every month. So that was all of my living expenses and all of my everything else. And then the other I lived off about 3/4. So the other 1/4 of that first paycheck was going to debt, and the second paycheck was going to debt, and all of my waitressing tips and everything was going to debt. So it took about 16 months to pay off all 25,000. But I finished a month before my 26th birthday in April of 2020.
What you said about like the avalanche method versus the snowball, because a question I get and I see quite a bit is, how do I pay it off? How do I get started? And I know people get tired of me, but I'm like, well, it depends. Because I very much think it's very much tied to psychology. Like, it depends on you, the person. Whereas I am a person who, I'm looking at the bigger picture and I'm thinking about the higher interest debt and what I am paying in total there. So like that is a motivating thing to me. But for a lot of people, and it sounds like you included, like what would help you stay on track is being able to see a result. Like, I have paid down this thing, that account is closed, let me get it out of the way. Whereas, for somebody else, that may not sit right with them. So it really is, you've got to figure out what you can live with.
Yes. And I mean, I try really hard to acknowledge the privileges in my, so I'm able to live with a roommate. Like, a lot of people can't do that. They might have children, or they might have a situation where they can't. I was also, if we even go further back in college, I was an RA. So I didn't have as many student loans as most people did going to a state school, because I was able to be an RA, which a lot of people can't do. So I would like to acknowledge, for me, the snowball worked because I had such a smaller amount. Like, my loans as a whole, they weren't consolidated. So I had little pocket loans here and there. So even the highest interest on a loan wasn't a large amount to make me feel uncomfortable. But I mean, I've been in the debt-free community on Instagram for a while, and I can see some of those interest rates, and some people's interest rates alone, how much they're paying in interest, was equivalent to some of my smaller loans. So I totally understand. Personal finance is personal, so.
Yes, it is. Because you did a post on your IG about the 12 things you did to pay off debt quicker. And of course, you mentioned getting a part-time job. This is one of those things that when people ask, like, okay, my current financial situation is not working for me, I've got this debt I want to pay off, or I want to take this trip, or I want to move to this country and I need money. There's only two sides of a coin. Either you got to spend less or you got to make more. And I know millennials get tired of hearing, like, well, you'd be able to buy a house if you wasn't eating avocado toast, because you can't cut enough avocado toast and lattes or whatever folks are spending. You can't. So you were able to find time somewhere in your schedule, or find a way that would allow you to make more money, and then you threw that extra income at your debt.
Yes, that's correct. So I will say, the avocado toast, the avocado toast joke or meme about millennials is hilarious, which is also kind of why I started straying away from the Dave Ramsey steps and going more towards Ramit's steps of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, focusing on things you like, and making and allocating to spend money on those, and not so much on things you don't. But yeah, I will say that for me, I posted on my page 5 things. So even if I was having a really tight budget day, I still had these called $5 fixes. So whether it was a Chick-fil-A kids meal or hot cocoa from my favorite coffee shop here, I would set aside $5 to still just kind of have something to treat myself, or still indulge. I don't think I could completely cut off the consumerist in me. I am a millennial. I live in North Carolina, in a college town. So there's all these things going on around me. So yeah, I don't think I could do that. So I had those things for myself. I am definitely not one of those rice and beans debt-free people. You got to find the balance, or else you'll falter, right? It won't work for you, and then you'll falter, and then you'll be discouraged, and then you're set back again. You got to find the balance for yourself.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of the people kind of in the debt-free community, as well as in the FIRE community, it is almost a race to the bottom. how little can I live on with
Yeah.
my, and then if you add somebody being a minimalist into that, they're in their sad little apartment with their one spoon and their one bowl, and they're eating
Yeah.
rice and beans, and they're riding their bike to work. And for a lot of people, they look at that and they're like, no, like I'm not I'm not trying to live like that.
Yeah, no, I don't have any. I mean, fire is like, especially when you start getting into financial wellness, fire obviously becomes everyone's goal, right? Everyone wants to retire early. Like, you know what, so, but when I started going through the Reddit boards and through Instagram, I was like, oh, we can't do this. We're not the same. We're not, and that's A-okay. I may not retire as early as some of the folks that retired at 35, 39. That's totally fine with me. We are not the same, and I'm not going to try and bend it. I need more than one spoon in my house. I'm a bachelorette. I need more than one spoon.
Yes. So I love that idea of the $5 fix it. Is that what it's called?
Yep, $5 fixes. So it's just like looking at things that cost you $5. There was a couple, I can't remember how long ago it was, but they would always buy each other like Snickers ice cream bars to celebrate their financial wins. I just thought that was really cute. So when I saw that on my Instagram feed, I was like, well, I kind of like something like that for myself too. So
yeah, it is very, like you said, personal finance is very personal. And I think your journey exemplifies that you've got to, nobody can prescribe like this is the thing that will work for you. You've kind of got to take it all in and decide like what resonates with you, what can you live with, thinking all of those kinds of things. Okay, so I am curious. I don't know if anybody watching this is, but I am curious, like, why you, especially because there was so much shame that you had attached to having the debt, like you didn't want to tell your mama. And now, or fast forward a few years, you have created this IG profile where you are sharing this journey about like, oh, I got myself in this debt, and these are the things. So I'm curious as to why you made that choice or how that evolved.
Yeah, so I'll be totally honest. I did not think anybody would ever find it. And anyone, I originally had made it to just like be accountable with my friends. Like because also I was learning new topics, I would share books, and I would also just like share new things. Like I didn't even know what Snowball and Avalanche was in 2018. So as I learned new things, I was like, oh, I kind of want to post about this. Or I would go in the hashtags and go berserk on the debt-free journey community or debt-free community and find new things. So I didn't think anyone would find it at first. And then as I started having the numbers fall, the amount of people within my friend group, within my community, outside of it online, that were just like, this is amazing. Like, I don't think I can ever do this. And I'm just sitting here like, oh, you could totally do it. And that's when I started being a little bit less shameful and like kind of peeling it back. It's a lot, I will say it is a lot easier to express those parts of your like journey to strangers. So like a lot of people I didn't know when I was doing this, and a lot of people were following me that I didn't have any real life connection with. But it just started getting easier to do it because I was like, oh no, you can totally do this. Like, I'm happy that you found my page. I'm happy that you're encouraged, but do not think that this is a one-stop, like a one-trick show over here. Like this could be mended and molded, and you could do it yourself as well. And so that's kind of what helped me peel back that like shame and that layer of like, I have to hold this in, because so many people, my family and friends included, were like literally cheering as each number would drop. And it wouldn't always be a big number. Sometimes it'd be like, we can only put $50 in there this week. My card broke down, something happened, life happened. But just having that community of people like cheering me on and just realizing they could do it too, it just kind of changed everything and made me want to continue doing it. And I'm so happy now that people are still finding the page, even though I'm no longer debt free. And like someone asked me like, what's going on now 2 years later? And I was like, oh wow, I really have to do that update. So it's just really cool.
JV is over here eating avocado toast as they're watching this.
And I hope it has red chili flakes on it. I hope it's nice and good.
Okay, so hold on, let me see. What was the next question I want to ask? I can't. You just drop that right there, so I can't walk past it. Okay,
No.
So you said I am no longer debt free. Okay. Would you like to talk about that?
Oh, so I am still debt free. I'm so sorry. So I have credit. So I do use credit cards, but I pay
Okay.
them off monthly.
Okay. So what you're saying is you have kind of your take has evolved, and whereas previously you sort of felt like buying things on credit, what after your experience, that was the problem, that was inherently bad, and what you're saying now is you use credit like a tool.
Oh yes, points. I went to I went on 2 trips last year solely on points because when I became debt free in 2020, it was literally like April, like so March everything had just shut down, and I was so frustrated because I'll admit I had for 16 months fasted from life, right? I was really just focused on doing this. So I hadn't really, I mean, I had lived, but I hadn't really enjoyed it. And then the pandemic happened. I was just like, well, damn, like I got money to blow now. I want to go out. I want to do stuff with my friends. And I couldn't do anything. So I spent the rest of 2020 just like saving up, and I was going to take a trip, world trip around the world. And that did not end up happening. Obviously, the pandemic did not lessen. It's still here.
Yeah.
So when 2021 came around, I had when you finish paying off loans, you know, your credit score takes a dip because it's like you don't have any viability as a lender. Like people don't know if they can give you money. So I opened I researched and did 2 travel cards. So I have 2 travel cards, and I have all of their sign-up bonuses. So when 2021 came around, I said, I'm going somewhere. I saved up money for a trip. I have all these miles. And so I ended up taking a couple of trips last year, using those. And I do use credit now as a tool to do that. So points and miles.
Okay, and you hit on something else, and this is one of the things that I teach in my financial course. It's not that credit is good or bad, and it's about using it as a tool, like a means to an end.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that here you were doing the right thing, paying down your balances, and your credit score took a ding. And at first, that might look like, oh, I'm being punished for doing the right thing. But y'all got to remember, the folks who are giving you credit, those are loans, and they want you to stay in debt to them.
Yep.
So why would they reward you for eliminating debt? So this is why I tell people, don't get too caught up in your credit score unless you are about to make a purchase that will require a loan, like a house or a car. Outside of that, I mean, okay, your 400 credit score, that can hinder you, like when you're trying to apply for a job, because the employer is like, girl, what are you doing? But like, don't beat yourself up over like, oh my gosh, my credit score dropped by 50 points. That's them playing the game.
Yeah, they're literally just like, oh, okay, fine. They're literally just trying to make what is it, playing Frogger?
Yes, that's what it is. Because like you said, by you paying off the debt, you're kind of like a bad credit customer, because a good credit customer would continue to have debt. So y'all don't stress about that too much.
No, not at all. Like no, not at all.
Okay. And one of the things that I saw that you did while you were working to pay down your debt was you made bi-weekly budgets.
Yes.
And you gave yourself an allowance.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Yes. So I made bi-weekly budgets. So in general, me and budgeting, not friends.
Same here, girl. Same here.
So I made bi-weekly budgets because the money was coming in bi-weekly. For me to do it over a month, I'm sorry, I'm going to forget something, or I'm going to overindulge. Especially when I was trying to still understand how I was going to manage my money. That was not working for me. I tried it, did not work. So bi-weekly worked a little bit better. And because I was really living off of that one paycheck, like really the big meat of my money already had plans bi-weekly. My tips is where things kind of like had a little bit more flexibility. And I did give myself an allowance. So that was just a mixture of fun money and needs money. So like like if I need something for my house, need grocery shopping, small things like that. I would give myself about, I think it was 150 every 2 weeks. And I didn't always spend all of that. Sometimes I would float it back. And sometimes I would like literally be like, okay, when's the next payday? So it kind of just depended upon like the dates or like that week. But I personally found that monthly budgeting or spreadsheet budgeting did not work for me very well. There was a girl, what was her name? I think it was You Need a Budget, Courtney. She had a bi-weekly budget template that was very simple. And she was just like giving it out on her Instagram story. And I was like, I'll try that one out. And it seemed to work. And I've used that one for a majority of the time. But sometimes it would be just as simple as like in my planner, I had like enough space to do my bi-weekly budget. But monthly budget to me,
yeah. I am a ardent follower of basically the anti-budget. Paula Pant talked about it because like I need big picture. I don't want to get caught up in the details and the minutia. So whatever, like I take that money off the top to go for everything else. And then what's left, I'm living it up on and not worrying about it. S. Taylor asked if anybody still did envelopes.
I did do envelopes for a brief period of time because I was dealing with so much cash waitressing. So for a brief period of time, I was doing envelopes. I was working at a Kenyan restaurant here in Durham, North Carolina, and we sometimes close super, super late. If you know anything about Afro beats, it keeps going. And it would just be too much for me to deposit the cash, or I'd just be super tired. I'll just go straight home. So I did use envelopes for a brief period of time, especially when I was during the summertime when we had really busy hours and I just didn't have time over the weekend to make a deposit. I would use cash envelopes.
And if somebody's watching and they're like, what is this? Your grandmother probably did this,
Yes.
where they had an envelope and they wrote down like the different bills on the envelope, and then they put a specific amount of money in that envelope. And then when it came time to like buy groceries, you take the money out of the groceries envelope. And when there is no more money, you cannot buy any more things in that category. I have done that. But as I got to being less and less cash reliant, it got a little bit trickier, which is kind of how I ended up more toward the anti-budget, where I didn't have to worry about how to allocate the cash I had left in my pocket. I thought there was another comment here.
That's a great point, though. Yeah, I don't do the envelope system now because I rarely deal with cash now. I no longer waitress or bartend, so.
There is a app called Good Budget that does the envelope system, but does it electronically. Oh. So if somebody's watching this and that has piqued their interest, they may give that a try. I have done the allowance thing as well when I was trying to eliminate credit card debt, but it sounds like you were a lot more generous with yourself in allowance, or maybe it's just because I'm old, because I'd be like, okay, you got $25. Like, yeah, and so I had to make it happen on that $25.
It was $150 for me because I eat primarily plant-based, and my roommate did not. So like groceries was different, and I grocery shop a little bit more frequently than she did. Now she actually eats a little more plant-based than I do. So yes, during that time, $150 was steep. I remember when I posted that, or I think I might have said it on my story, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, it's so much!" Like I'm $25 to $75 seemed to be the more like common range. But I was like, "Ooh, yeah, I need my vegetables, my fruit."
Okay, so do you feel like there were things along the journey that you might have done better, or things like you feel like that maybe there were some mistakes made?
Yeah, I say this commonly now, and that's always been kind of my dilemma with like people asking for advice of how to duplicate it. When the pandemic did hit, I literally was pissed because I had fasted so much from life. So this is like an aside, I guess, but I decided around the same time that I was going to pay off my student loans. I was also going to do a year of sobriety as well as a year of celibacy. So I think in coupling all those things together and also working 65 hours a week, I ran myself ragged, and I did not give myself opportunities for fun. And I remember someone commented on another couple's page. It was just like, y'all did all of that stuff. What if, God forbid, something would have happened to either of you? Like, you would have ended and that would have been it. And when the pandemic hit and like I finished being debt free, I really just sat there and was like, wow, what if this is like it? It was very scary. There was a lot of fear that happened back in April and March of 2020. And I was like, what if I just spent the last 16 months paying off these loans when I should have been just living life? So I think when people ask me now to duplicate it, I'm like, just give yourself a little bit more leeway, a little bit more grace. You never know. Literally, you have no idea if what's going to happen next. In my case, I had no idea that a world pandemic was going to come and I wasn't going to be able to travel the way I thought. That's one. I mean, I feel like everything else went well and I like the results that happened. I probably just would have given myself more grace and had more fun with my friends, spent more time with my family, because when the pandemic hit, I couldn't do any of that. So it didn't even matter that I was debt free. I couldn't even, me and my roommate were the only ones that celebrated together. We couldn't even, the grocery store closed early because of COVID. So we didn't even go to the grocery store to pop a bottle of champagne. We were just sitting in the house like, well, yeah. So very anticlimactic, not as great as it could have been. So that if I could change anything, it would just be, I would have allowed myself to have a little bit more memories in life to call back on during that time, as opposed to just being worked.
You make a very good point, because I also think that these different people who share their journeys via blogs, YouTube, IG, often, as we said before, they're doing it and they're denying themselves so much, so that when somebody who is looking to get started, that can be like, oh, I don't know. If I've got to live like that, I don't know if I can do this. And that's just it. You don't. What's important is that you make progress toward paying down the debt or saving the money or whatever your financial goal is. But yeah, you've got to find a balance to, like, there is a version of this where you can travel the world and pay down debt, or you can do this thing and the other thing. It's not necessarily, it doesn't have to be all or the other.
Yep. If I could, that would be my, if I could do it again, I probably would have found a better balance in between the two. I think in 2018, when I got back from Thailand, it just seemed so absolute, like it has to be this way. But hindsight being 2020, of course, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's one thing I would probably do differently, or something I've tried, I think, over the past 2 years of being debt free, to let it be know how I feel about it. That's why I no longer recommend Dave Ramsey's steps, because they are a little bit more intense. They are a little bit more rice and beans. I try to, say that. I'm like, hey, this was cool. It worked for me. I did it. Would I do it again? Not that way, but so yeah, that's all I would probably change.
Okay, so one of your motivation for getting out of debt and really taking control of your finances was to travel.
Yeah.
And of course, the pandemic showed up, and those were dreams delayed.
Yeah.
Have you been able to do that, to travel, since you became debt free?
Yes. So it was definitely dreams delayed. I had bought a one-way ticket to Nepal on October 17th of 2020. Did not take that. So that was, I was like, okay, that's fine. In 2018, I've talked about Thailand quite a bit, but I was in a hostel there, and I had met these two guys from Brooklyn who were backpacking. And
in Lithuania?
No, in Thailand, in northern Thailand.
Oh, I thought you said Talon. That's why I was like, wait, how did we end up in Eastern Europe?
Okay. Oh, no, yeah. I have
Thailand.
A southern twang.
Okay, I got you.
I met these two guys from Brooklyn in a hostel. And so in January of 2021, we've kept in touch since then. I hadn't seen them since 2018, but they randomly hit me up and were like, let's go to Egypt in January. And I was, we were all vaccinated. And I was like, this was before vaccinations, but we all were considered essential. So we were going to be the first round. And I was like, you know what? Let's go. So I went to Egypt in January of 2021. That was really great. I studied abroad in college, and I was able to utilize some of my Arabic, which was really cool. For my birthday, I then went to Mexico, went to Puerto Vallarta, which is my first time on that coast, on the West Coast, and I loved the West Coast. I will probably never do Tulum, Cancun again because I was like, wow, this is amazing. Loved it a ton. And then I went to Greece in August with the two guys again. So we went on 2 trips together last year. And this year I went to Hawaii, and I just got back from Colombia last night. So yes, yesterday morning.
Yeah, yesterday.
Yesterday.
And one of the things that I always talk about how people need to get their FU money together. Like you need to have that cushion so you can leave the job, the person, the country that ain't serving you anymore. I also talk about you need to also have some hell yeah money. And what you said was a prime example of that. Your boys reached out and were like, hey, let's go to Egypt. And because you had put things in order, you didn't have to hesitate to say, okay, how am I going to pay for this? You could immediately say, hell yeah.
Yep.
I love
and to your point about the FU money, I did leave my job last year. My last job, I was working in local government for the past 5 years. And in my new job, I negotiated WFA, work from anywhere. I said, I don't want to work from home. I want to work from anywhere. So this past week in Colombia was my first time actually working from anywhere. And it was great. And then this summer, I actually will be in Europe for 4 months, and I'll be working from there. So that was a big part of my negotiations with them. I didn't want to take a new job that I was going to be stuck again in North Carolina. I love my home state, but I am meant to see more.
Amen. Amen.
So, yes.
Okay. So you can't, okay. In the new normal that we live in now, a lot of folks are like, I can't be going to an office. I need to be able to work remotely. And you mentioned that you negotiated. You were like, okay, y'all job is nice and all, but I need to be able to work from anywhere. Do you have any tips or suggestions for someone else who either just heard you say this and is like, oh, that's a thing we can do, or they've been trying to wrap their head around, like, what does that conversation look like, how to approach it, you know?
So I think the big tip is do not be afraid that it's not going to go the way you want. My mom always used to say, the worst you can do is ask. So this job, initially, I did turn it down because when they presented it to me in our conversations, they didn't seem willing to do work from anywhere. And like you said, with FU money, I had been sitting on my travel money. And I was just like, well, I know I'm leaving this job no matter what. So whether or not y'all give me a job or whether or not I just leave and travel, I'm out. And so I turned it down, and I was very open with them. I said, I would really love to join you all. I really enjoyed all the, meetings. I got to meet the team. I seemed like it was going to be a really good fit for me. It's work that I care about. But I want to travel, and we're not able to meet on the same table. And unfortunately, I think I'm just going to have to decline it right now. And it was 3 days later, I got a phone call, and they were just like, we can make it work. They was like, we don't have a work from anywhere policy. I am the only person at my job that works from anywhere. So it is definitely a prototype. We're still ironing kinks out. It's a learning process. We learned a lot this past week in Colombia, but when they called 3 days later, I genuinely was shocked because at that point I had already written it off, and I was like, okay, I'm still just going to leave my job no matter what. So I think the big tip is be honest about what you want, know what you bring to the table. So I know I have 5 years of experience in my field, and I know that on paper and in person, I am a catch. And I did not allow that to deter me from asking what I wanted. And that in this case was work from anywhere. And just know if it's a job you want and, if it doesn't work out, you have to be okay with walking away if they say no. You can keep it just knowing that it's not going to meet all the boxes, or you have to be okay with walking away. For me, it just so happened to work out, and I'm very thankful, but I definitely walked away for a second there.
I agree, as Taylor. They are showing us how it's done, and I'm not mad at it at all. And I love that you mentioned you're excuse me, you're the only one, like, because I think because of this space that I'm in, and I work with women who are wanting to move abroad, a lot of them are looking for remote jobs. And a lot of the focus is on find a company that is fully remote, what have you. But what you're showing us is that you don't have to rule out companies that aren't, that if you, as with all negotiations, you know,
Yes.
even when you haggle at the little vendor in Mexico, you got to be willing to walk away. But, and you can do that if you got some FU money, but just because they aren't doing it doesn't mean they can't do it, and they won't do it.
I think for me and for my company, I just think they didn't realize how amendable, like we already have a work from home policy. So even when I'm in the States, I do not have a cubicle at their office. Like I don't have anywhere to work at. So to me, I was like, it makes no difference if I am here or if I am in another country. And so, you know, a couple of the things I'll mention, negotiating factors. I said, I still don't mind being available during core hours, which is from 9 to 1 or 9 to 12. So I'm still available no matter what times I'm in. Granted, in Hawaii, that was not fun. Because Hawaii is 5 hours behind Eastern Standard Time. Struggling is the key word there. Struggling was the key word there. So I learned that I will not be traveling that far behind in time. So Colombia was only an hour behind Eastern Standard. In Europe, I'll be anywhere from 5 to 6 hours before. So I could still be available during those core hours, which to my company was very important, that I'm available to our clients and to my coworkers. So it's really just most work from home policies are so amendable to work from anywhere because you're taking the exact same services, the same software with you. It's just figuring out the timing part. I think that's what makes people uncomfortable, is like the time. And for me, I was like, hey, I will still be available 9 Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern. In Europe, I'll be working 11 to 7, I think, and that will allow me to be able be available during those times. But it was, like, I don't know who said it, but yes, a little bit assertive, yes. But
yes, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Be assertive. Go for it. And you said, your mom always said the worst they can say is no. I think all us Black mamas have said that, because I know I've told my children multiple times. And that's the thing. Like, are you any worse off if they say no?
In this case, for me, it was not. You know, if you're putting all your eggs in one basket with the shop, you don't have the FU money, and like there are things that made me feel more comfortable in being assertive in that case. For me, the worst they could have said was no, because I would just started looking for something else, or just started on my travel journey and not worked from Europe, and actually maybe met my Parisian love and got my second passport and free healthcare. But
hey,
you know,
that can still happen. Oh, wow. Okay. So continuing in the talk about travel, on your IG page, I saw this post. It was like 5 things I always bring when traveling. And number 1 on that list, y'all know what it was? A small jar of peanut butter. She knows what's up.
Yes, I've had TSA take it one time and I cried. I was so mad.
You gotta switch to the little packets.
Yeah,
because I've never had them confiscate those, because you may not know this, but anybody watching this does. Peanut butter is like my number 1 food. It has kept me from starving, and I have lost count how many countries. So yes.
I tell people that I put it up there because I studied abroad in Morocco during Ramadan. So I got off the plane. I had never left the US before. It was my second flight ever. And it was in Ramadan. So I get off the plane and everything is closed. Nothing is open except for the bread guy. And I learned then that dry bread would have been good with some peanut butter. And so ever since then, I keep peanut butter with me because it's a quick snack. You'll always find some nice silly bread, no matter what. So
exactly, you can always, like, because I'm not much of a breakfast eater, and so, you know, I will be someplace and they're serving whatever the regional breakfast thing is there, and I'm like, usually it'll come with something, because I don't eat fruits and vegetables, so we push that stuff to the side. But I'm like, there will be some sort of thing on this plate that I can just put some peanut butter on and keep it moving.
Yeah, keep it. I remember the first time my friends, when we travel, whenever they see it, they're always like, "There goes Liza with that peanut butter again." But someone is going to eventually dip it in there. Someone's going to eventually ask for some. It never fails.
Yep. Yep. The other things, in case y'all are wondering, that were on her list: 2 plain white tees, an extension cord, an emergency $20 bill USD, baby wipes, tissue packet. I would imagine sanitizer's probably on that list now too. 'Cause I know.
Sanitizer now, and I also, because I started solo traveling more and not staying in hostels, I have a doorstop alarm, which I don't have near me right now, but it goes underneath your door and it's a loud sound. It doesn't require anything but a D battery, and so I use those now as well with traveling.
Okay. All right. Greta wants to know, where do you put your FU money?
So high yield savings accounts for me. I have a Charles Schwab account. So that's where mine is currently sitting at. It was sitting there because I thought I was going to be taking a worldwide trip, and Charles Schwab does not have any, they reimburse ATM fees. And so that's why it was sitting there. I haven't, at one point, there was like this battle of the online banks and high yield saving. It got a little overwhelming for me, so mine has just sat in Charles Schwab. I'm aware there's probably other banks that have different rates. It was a little overwhelming for me. So,
well, and some people can get caught up in the whole like chasing interest rates. And I'm just like, I want a life of ease. So is it worth me to go through all the hassle to move it over here for 1 percentage point or a 0.5%?
That was kind of my thought process. So I kind of left mine in there because it just worked out. And to answer, I think, the saving strategy question, I still live off of 1 paycheck a month, everybody. It didn't really deter me my, what's it called? Lifestyle creep.
Yes.
Like, I haven't had any additions in my lifestyle. I still am debt free. So I don't need that extra resource. So that other one goes to savings. So that's still my saving strategy.
And so in essence, that means your savings rate is about 50%.
About 50%. So I am one of the like subtle flyer people. I'm not like, I don't do spreadsheets. I probably don't even talk about it too much because there's still some parts of fire that kind of confuse me myself. But my savings rate and my investment rates, how I'm able to give into my 401k and my Roth is because I'm living off 1 paycheck a month. So it's about a 50% savings rate.
A couple of weeks ago, our Black Utopia, Halisi was a guest, and because they are retiring to Portugal. They're going to split their time between Portugal and Mexico. But 2 years ago, like they were not on it. And so we were in that conversation, we talked about savings rate and how a lot of the messaging out there is you need to save for retirement, you need to save. But nobody talks about that just saving alone isn't enough, that you do need to invest. And the other thing that I don't think it's talked about enough is how much you need to save. And I made the comment that like just to live, you need to be saving 15, 20%. That if you're talking about fire, that's when you're like, okay, at least 50%. And folks were like, what? Because if you're not, and I'll say it again, if you're not saving at least 20%, you're probably not going to be able to retire.
Not in the time that you think you will.
No.
I think a lot of people, I come from a hardworking Eastern North Carolina family. My grandmother just retired on the last Friday in April after 33 years at Walmart. And that was very hard on her body. And, it's those types of things that I don't want for my sisters and myself. And I didn't want for my grandma. I wish I was in a place to retire my grandma earlier than now after all that time at Walmart. And my grandfather, after all that time working on the Marine base. So, just things like that. I feel like most people, the rate in which you have to save, it's actually astronomical. Not astronomical,
yes, it is.
But, and it's like a lot of people think the $50 to $100 here and there is going to really, change up. And it's like, not in the time that you think. You will retire with the $50 to $100, just not in the time that you think.
Not in the time you think, or your retirement is not going to look the way that you want it to.
Yeah. So, I saw the post about the 60. I know there's people that say more on fire, and that I haven't got to the point now where I've started talking about my own fire journey. My goal was just to reach 100K net worth by 30. And once that occurred, I was like, okay, what's next? And I realized I just don't, at this time, I'm single with no kids. And if you guys have any eligible sons, I I don't have anything that's stopping me from saving that, or that has causing me to spend that other half of my monthly paycheck. So
No,
it just goes to save.
you're keeping lifestyle creep in check, and I think that is huge, because that's what gets folks in trouble, because as they have made more money and they've, not to say you can't like start getting nicer things or treating yourself more, because hell, you going to work, you've earned it, but not keeping it in check, all of a sudden you find yourself that I have to live on X amount of money.
Yeah.
And if trying to save then feels like deprivation. Yeah. Which if you can keep lifestyle creep in check, you won't have that conflict there. There were two questions in here. Greta asked it and somebody else about like, should you be putting your money high yield savings or investing? The thing about your FU money, you got to think about like when might you be using it? Because if it is illiquid, let's say your FU money was fully invested. Right now, if you found that you needed to use it and liquidate it, the stock market has been on straight shenanigans for the last few months. So that, that's something to consider, but you got to figure out what works with you and what you're comfortable with. If putting it in the market for the potential growth, you can live with that, go for it. I don't know who this is directed at JG. It's cheaper to stay single, but I find it hilarious because I'm not mad at it. I'm
in the phase now where with traveling, especially because I primarily do solo unless I'm with my two guy friends, I've discovered it's cheaper to stay single, and I enjoy dating when I'm traveling. I actually do enjoy like seeing a new city with someone new. It's kind of cool. It is kind of one of those things where you gotta like vet people and make sure they're not creepy, make sure they're not scary, and all that jazz. Make sure.
But you gotta do that anywhere.
You gotta do that anywhere. So I went on like a really nice date when I was in Colombia. It was really nice, and so I'm seeing that this is a side of travel that I hadn't really experienced before, because I was backpacking, if you know what that means. I was not out here looking like anyone's suitable person. But now that I travel a little bit more luggage and a little bit more done up, I've actually been able to go on a couple of dates. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. Y'all heard her say it. She out there looking cute in the streets, and she's dating internationally. She's doing the damn thing. Okay, this is a great question. Thank you for asking this. As Taylor, what are some of your favorite financial books to read?
So my top two right now are A Simple Path to Wealth. I think it's J.G. Collins.
Yes.
And
J.L. Collins.
J.L. Collins. And I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. I feel like those are my top two right now. Before that, I will say I did read every single Dave Ramsey book there was. So I don't want to speak totally ill the Total Money Makeover program, because it did get my foot in the door. But as someone, if you know very much about the 7 baby steps, they are very much focused on the Christian ideal of family and success, which is, his thought process. And I discovered earlier on that I did not want to have kids. Like, I don't want a home. So there's things that just didn't align. It
doesn't fit as your vision of who you are and the life you want to live came clearer. That did not fit.
It did not.
I will co-sign on Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. Like, if you want somebody to break it down and say, like, this is the thing you need to do, that is the book.
Yeah, J.L. Collins. And then I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I feel like it was just like a good step-by-step. A lot of the things I read it after my debt-free journey, so it was kind of like a little after the fact, but I still thought it was a pretty good book. And then The Richest Man in Babylon, I think my dad gifted me that when I was either graduating college or graduating high school, but I did not read it until the pandemic. So, but it was pretty good as well.
Okay. Yvette had asked about income stream. Now, I know when you were trying to pay off your debt, you had a side hustle. Do you continue to do that, or you're like, I'm all right now?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I no longer have the side hustle. And with my new job, I accepted about a $22,000 increase in pay. So it kind of evened itself out. So I no longer have more than one stream of income. I know that's also why I don't really, if you follow the fire boards, you need five. I haven't reached that level and I don't think I will. I've already done it. I did 65 hours a week for 16 months. I don't have the intention of doing that again. So yes, I no longer have multiple streams of income. I just have one. I crochet for fun, but my friends would love for me to turn that into a business, but I don't have any desire to do that. I just continue to, now that I no longer have debt and other things taking away my money that I bring home, I'm able to kind of put it where I want to and live off of a little bit less.
Okay. All right. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Okay. So, one of your goals was to have no, was it to your, oh, I like that you call your emergency fund your coming back fund.
Yes. When you solo travel, all of your family thinks you are not coming back. I don't know. Like, there's always worry. So yes, I called my emergency fund my coming back fund because I wanted to come back to the States and not be like, I did not want to have to move back in with my mom. So I was like, okay, when we come back, we got to still come back in a level of a level of living and lifestyle that we want. So that meant not moving back in with my mom. My mom's also a bachelorette. We need our own space. So yeah.
I talk about that money. That's your old shit fund. Like,
Yep.
Stuff goes down, you got some money, some way, some space on a credit card, whatever, because it depends on where you are in your journey, that you can get back to where you need to be. Yes. And not be stuck. Okay. Yes. And you were working toward your increasing your net worth.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of our conversations about personal finance are usually focused on paying down the debt, on that side of it. And I don't, at least outside of the fire spaces, I don't hear people talk about net worth very much.
Yeah. I will say before this journey, I probably hadn't thought about it at all either. But I think for me, it's increasing my net worth right now is all about compound interest. And I started working in local government at 22 years old. So I have a pension, I have all this stuff. I will not see any of that for 31 more years at the minimum.
At least.
At least. So my goal once I finished paying off debt was like, okay, everyone always talks about this big sis compound interest and how I got to really get on her good side. And my goal was to just get to that level. So I kind of calculated, there's a calculator that you can find. I can't think of which website it's on again, but it's a government website. If you don't put any more money in, like, what would your retirement amount be? And I was like, well, if I can get to 100K by 30 in my net worth, then I probably can kind of chill. It would be a good retirement amount. It wouldn't be fire. Obviously, I still would have to work.
No, but the math will math.
Yeah, the math will math. It'll be a good amount.
And this is another reason I wanted to have you on, is because I find that when I talk to younger women, a lot of them aren't working on their net worth. They're not investing. And when I ask why, I hear a lot about fear, but what I would love for them to understand is what you just said. The younger you are, the less you're going to have to do in the long run. So, and I'm always bastardizing this Chinese proverb about, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. Like, the time piece, this is when people ask, like, should I be paying down my debt or should I be investing? You should be doing both, because you can't get that time back.
Yep, you can't. And it's there. Like, it's already there. So whether or not, like, I started 2 years ago or starting today, it's all happening right behind me. I just got to tap in. And so I do think the fear aspect, because even when I start talking about investing, my friends are like, girl, we ain't never done that before. Like, And I'm just like, well, I showed them Simple Path of Wealth, which I felt like for me helped break down a lot of the scary parts of it. It was very simple to read and very simple to understand. I also take very good advantage of any type of 401k or financial planner at my job. Because I worked for the government, there was also the pension person. And sometimes I would schedule a meeting just to ask very basic questions. I'm like, so you kept saying 457. What is that?
What is that?
And then you said index. And I literally was just to show up like, because I did not, and I mean, all of my coworkers and my family would say is start early. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, but what am I starting? Like, what am I starting? What am I doing it for? They're asking me if I'm aggressive, if I'm not. So I would literally show up whenever they say sign up to talk about your finances. I would sign up and just show up with like vocabulary words like, okay, so hey.
Now, are you one of the lucky people who gets a 457 plan?
I am not a lucky person for 457. So I worked in local government, not in state. So I do not get a 457. Do get a pension, but it's kind of weird with that too, because that's a concept most people don't have. And it's like one of those things where I still actually understand all the aspects of how it works, but my time is vested. So
okay. If somebody is watching this and they're like, what the hell are they talking about? Y'all, this is what I do. In addition to talking about moving abroad and that sort of thing, I help women understand these financial terms and figure out how to get started investing and all of that. There is, I'm sure, a link in the description. You can go to pickygirltravels.thinkific.com, find out more information about the courses there or the academy there. But like, that's the whole reason of why I do what I do, is because I want to see more women who look like me and you out here traveling the world and, being able to do it comfortably and being comfortable with their money enough to live the life that they want.
Definitely. It breaks my heart when my homegirls say they can't go, or when I have to like check them and be like, can you afford this? Like, like I'm asking you to come with me, but I don't want you to put this on credit. Like, you can tell me no, it's fine. And that's such an awkward conversation to have because of how we treat money in our community and in general in the United States. But I'm just like, you're not going to come on a trip with me and it be like breaking you financially. Because if I find out, I'm going to be pissed. So like, girl, don't even do that. We can hold it off to next year, or we can make a savings plan. Like, we can do something else. But if I ask and you ain't got it, please don't try and that hurts my heart that that's the case. So anything that can help bring more Black women into this space of just having more financial knowledge, whether or not, I'm not saying debt freedom, because that may not be what works for you. Yeah. So just having more financial knowledge, financial understanding and comfort, that's what I'm here for. Because we got trips to take, y'all.
Yes.
Passport books to fill up.
All right. So where are we going? Where are you going? You just got back from Colombia last night. Where are you going next?
I leave on 4th of July for Europe for 4 months.
Okay.
So in between now and then, I'll be in Martha's Vineyard next weekend for a wedding for a week. I'm so excited. I've never been to that part. I'm hoping that it's people of color friendly. And I'll be there. And then after that, I'll probably just be hanging out with my family, friends, and loved ones before heading to Europe. And then after Europe, South Africa next February for a month for a wedding again. Okay. So a lot of my friends are getting married right now, which is fun.
Hey, more power to them. More power to them.
Yeah.
The folks in the chat, and I'm sure anybody watching this is wanting to know where else can they find you? Where can they follow you? She wants, Auntie Lou wants to know, do you have a YouTube channel?
I don't. I've been thinking about starting one. I bought a ring light, as y'all can tell. I've been thinking about starting one. I have always been a little hard-headed and not really great at recording life, because I will just be it's still shocking to me sometimes that I live this life. So I will literally go a whole day and be like, you ain't not near picture, not near video.
I know that struggle. I do, which is
Literally,
why I
like,
tell people all the time I was a failed travel blogger because I don't want to stop doing my thing to think about what
no.
shots I need to get and all of that. So
Sometimes,
no, I
sometimes I don't be looking good. Like if we just be honest, sometimes traveling, you done had a rough day. So I'm hoping to start YouTube this summer. My friends and I, we are all Black people working from Europe for 4 months, and we realized that there's probably people that haven't done this before. Or
yes. And I can tell you from the work I do, people want to see that.
yeah.
They want to see people who look like us doing those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I might get into my digital nomad YouTube bag, y'all. If I do, I'll post about it on Debt Free to Travel, which is my Instagram right now. That's primarily where most people can find me. But if I do start, y'all will be the first to know.
All right.
And hopefully I can at least be consistent about posting and just telling people how it works. Especially, I want more people to realize that work from anywhere policies, you can make your own. Like with my company, we are really rough drafting it. Like we had some miscommunications in Colombia. Things don't always go. Like, we're still learning. And so that's a big part of it. Like my coworkers are learning from me. I have coworkers in their 40s and 50s who are thinking about doing it. And that makes me incredibly happy to just see people trying to go after it too. So if YouTube is where it needs to be, that's where it'll be at.
Okay. But as of right now, if you want to follow her, if you are at the beginning of your own debt-free journey and you want like some inspiration and see how she did it, all of that is on her IG page, Debt Free to Travel. And I'm gonna throw this up here because if Vet's telling y'all my class is on point, it's worth every penny. So because here's the thing, y'all, as Liza has pointed out, even somebody as young as she is, the pandemic reminded her that life is short. If there is a life that you want to live that you are not currently living, and finances are what is in your way, find your people, find somebody, as Stephanie Perry says, talking your talk to help you get on that path. That might be, you might be in a place that like you just want to follow somebody's IG page like Liza. You might want more one-on-one help, which you might book like an Ask Adelia session with me, or you might want to be part of my group coaching. But whatever it is, find someone to help you, because just spending years wanting to live the life you want, but not doing anything to start putting that in motion,
it's gonna get old.
Yeah, and we don't want that for you.
We don't want that.
No, we want more than that for you. I don't know. Before I let Liza go, I'm gonna ask y'all: do you have any other questions you want to ask?
Open book.
While she's here, we'll give them a second to see if there are any questions.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else interesting. But I don't think there's very much else interesting. So.
Okay. Where did you go in Colombia?
I was in Medellin for the whole week.
Okay.
I was going to, so Bogota has been having protests and unrest. So it's actually a travel advisory for Bogota right now. So I was like, okay, can't do that. So I went to Medellin and I thought about going to Cartagena. The guy that I had went on a date with was like, oh, you should come with us to Cartagena. And I was like, I'm going to stay here. Plus, I really like the city a lot. It's very walkable. I felt very safe. A lot of things to do. A lot of also, I like hiking in the outdoors. So a lot of hiking in the outdoors as well. So I really did enjoy it there. Hopefully, I want to go back and then take my time. I met so many people on their South America loop, which it was kind of mind-blowing because most of them didn't even speak Spanish. So I was like, y'all just been out here for 4 months with not even hola, not even so I was a little confused. But
okay, do you speak Spanish?
I did speak Spanish for 3 years and Arabic for 2 years. So
okay, all right.
So I love language, and so I was very happy to be in a space in which I was forced to speak Spanish. I wasn't trying to use Translate. I was like, nope, let's do it. I'm gonna stutter. My hands are gonna sweat, but let's do it.
Yeah, no, you just got to do it. And But even if you don't speak it, you can still do it. It can still work. It just, you're going to be a little less comfortable.
Yeah.
There might be things getting lost in translation, but it can be done. Um, Culinary guide. Yes, you can go back to the beginning of this live stream, but once it is over, it is still the entire video is going to be here on my YouTube channel. So you can see all the stuff we talked about at the beginning. I too am proud of Liza because, I think about like, wow, had I got my shit together when I was her age, what the hell could I have been doing now? But, better late than never.
Yep, that's what I say. Because even now, I mean, my mom and I, like, we have more candid conversations about money I never thought we would have. And my mom was a single mom, raised 4 kids, so a lot of her financial issues now might have been the result of just doing it on her own for so long. So my goal now, one of my unofficial goals, I probably won't discuss too much on my page until everything's finished, just to really help my mom, like, be able to live a life that she can, have a good time, and just experience things now that she's no longer 24/7 sewing and feeding into me and my sister's lives. So it's never too late. I don't think that's the case.
Okay. Anything you want to put out there about travel credit cards?
So I think the big thing is if you're not good with managing $1 or managing $10, you're not gonna be good with managing $1,000. So that's my first little thing I'll say. Because now my credit balance is I can buy a car with my credit balance. That would have 18-year-old me. It spooks 28-year-old me all the time. But so the cards I primarily use are Chase Sapphire Reserved, which not the preferred, not the one with the $600 annual fee. Don't got that one. Chase Freedom Unlimited, and then I also use Delta Platinum Sky Miles because I fly Delta quite a bit. I live in the Raleigh-Durham area, and I have family I visit in New York. My sister was living in New York, and I was going to New York once a month, so I was flying Delta all the time. And because North Carolina doesn't have a lot of direct flights anywhere, we go to Atlanta a ton, so it just made sense to have the card so I can use the lounge, quite frankly, and relax there because I've connected there for both Egypt and for Greece. So it's a very common connection for us.
I will add my little 2 cents. If you are trying to get into like getting travel points and all of those things, you've got to commit to paying off the card every month. If you carry a balance, it's like you pulling money in and then turning around and throwing it back out the window. Yeah. So that's the thing. And if, as we said earlier today about personal finance being personal, if you know that is a slippery slope for you, maybe don't go there.
Don't do it. Yeah. And that's okay. You don't have to.
That's
you don't
okay.
have to have a card to travel have. You can still make a Delta Sky Miles account and still earn rewards if you know you fly often. You can still make an American. You can make an account with every airline and earn miles. It may not be at the same frequency that you would if you had a card, but you don't have to have a card to earn miles and express loyalty. And when the time comes, you then can, go that route.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Liza, for sharing your journey and being so transparent and so free. I have enjoyed this conversation. Everybody here watching it live has enjoyed it. And if you're watching this on the replay, leave a comment. Let us know whether or not you enjoyed this conversation, ask your questions, that sort of thing. Be sure to check out Liza's IG page, Debt Free to Travel. And if you are watching this and you haven't subscribed, what you waiting on? Y'all, I'm trying to get to 10,000. I know that number doesn't really mean anything, but it's a nice round number.
It means something.
I don't know. I don't know in the grand scheme of things what it means, but it's a nice round number. And I'd like to get there sooner than later. So if you haven't subscribed, please do. And y'all take care. Next week's live will be on Wednesday. I think we'll be back on schedule, and hopefully I will have recovered from yesterday by then.
That's me right now with Columbia. It was fun. We had time.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Thank y'all so much. Have a great night.